You are now tuned in to the Kicking and Dolo YouTube channel, the Liddy Sports YouTube channel.
Clear out the room, I'm coming through. They wanna see what I'm about. Yeah, I got skills, do it for the thrill. I'm on a paper route. Extra, read about.
What's going on? It's your boy Dolo J, and welcome back to the Kicking the Dolo podcast, the sports podcast where we talk about football and basketball, past, present, and future, top 5, top 10 stats, and more. So without further ado, let's get right back into it. Alright, man, this is going to be episode 20, another strictly NFL episode, as episode 19 was. Basically, the NFL regular season has wrapped up, so we're just going to talk about the football that's transpired over the last 2 days, maybe 2-3 games in the season, and, I might get into my predictions, I might not, depending on how I'm feeling. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. We know the Chiefs beat the Raiders, 31-13. Mahomes did his thing. It wasn't too much the Raiders could really do. The next game, Saturday night, was against the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Basically, a win if you're in game. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars did have an outside shot of winning, getting into the playoffs as the 7th seed if they did not win, but they ultimately ended up pulling out the victory. I was gonna make this just strictly a Jacksonville Jaguars episode, but given the fact that 2 games really stood out to me, basically with seeding on the line, so I just basically put the top 2 games in my opinion from the AFC and the NFC. So yeah, but Jacksonville, they won. What was the score? It was 20-16, I believe. 20-16. Trevor Lawrence went 20 of 32 for 212 yards and 1 touchdown. Etienne Jr. had 7 carries for 17 yards, 2 receptions for 17 yards. Christian Kirk had 6 receptions for 99 yards and 1 touchdown on 8 targets. Josh Allen, the middle linebacker of the Jacksonville Jaguars, not to be confused with the starting quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, had the game-winning fumble recovery around maybe the 3 to 4 minute mark in the fourth quarter. Joshua Dobbs, given the fact that, he tried and they battled back, but ultimately, it was a couple of fourth down attempts that the Tennessee Titans went for, and ultimately them not having a big play receiver to the caliber of which A.J. Brown is, really, cost them not only this game, but just, them having the chance of making the playoffs this season. Ending up on a 6-game losing streak. Dobbs went 20 of 29 for 179, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times, but hit 13 times. Derrick Henry had a good game, 30 carries for 109 yards, 1 reception for 19 yards. But ultimately, when the rubber hit the road, needed to meet the road, man, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they basically, they did their thing, man. It was basically all on Derrick Henry. Tannehill had the high ankle sprain, decided to get surgery, and it really didn't work out too well. It's a possibility that he had like an outside shot of making it, but he didn't make it. Malik Willis left a lot to be desired. Only having 276 yards, no touchdowns. I think he had 3 interceptions. He didn't play to the caliber of which they thought he was going to play. And then like I said, Joshua Dobbs, which was their best shot, really. Kind of had sort of a Baker Mayfield type thing, but he didn't have to play the exact same week. I think he got there one week and then had to play the very next week. So it was real difficult and extremely hard for him to do his thing, basically, man. And Tennessee Titans, they ended up finishing 7-10 on the season. Winning 5 less games than which they won last season, having a 12-5 record, and ultimately being the number 1 seed in the AFC. It was just a bad season for them. I'm not saying Treylon Burks, can't turn into their wide receiver, but it's really hard to make the playoffs when your top receiver of the season didn't even reach 500 yards. He did not reach 500 yards. I think Robert Woods was their top receiver. Yes, Robert Woods was their top receiver. He only had 49 receptions for 487 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. Derrick Henry, he still had almost 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, tied for second. But it wasn't enough. But let's get back to the Jaguars, man. The Jaguars, 4-8 5 weeks ago. Really looking real abysmal for him. Thought there was just going to be another down season. Pull off 5 straight wins to ultimately make the playoffs and get the 4 seed. They're going to be going against the Chargers, on wild card weekend. But Trevor Lawrence, last season he had 3,641 yards, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. This season he had 3,901 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. So, a steady progression, a nice progression from year 1 to year 2. Touchdowns double with also the interceptions being cut in half. That's exactly what you want to see from your number 1 overall pick in their second season. Maybe not necessarily, even if he just would have threw maybe 11 or 10 interceptions, it still would have been a good season. And even if he would have just threw maybe 18, 19 touchdowns. But for him to go to just, flip the switch on his head, basically do a complete 180. And, after this game, he really talked about in the post-game interview, just playing a lot more football and, getting a lot more football under his belt. I know for a fact that the game definitely slowed down for him this season. And also, they weren't no slouches. Jacksonville got rid of Urban Meyer early in the season. They brought in Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winning coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. They also brought in some weapons, Christian Kirk, and also Evan Ingram from the New York Giants. Kirk had 1,009 yards on the season for 7 touchdowns, 78 receptions. Ingram had 69 receptions for 739 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. Marvin Jones Jr., 44 receptions, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. Zay Jones, 78 receptions for 802 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then also they brought in, ETN from Clemson, his college quarterback. A lot of teams are doing that, similar to what the Raiders tried to pull off with Devontae Adams and Derek Carr. You've seen a lot of teams trying to, pair up college quarterbacks with their with a teammate that they had in college. Now, we know Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are like the outlier of the situation. For the most part, we know that they had extreme success from day one. Jamar Chase, I believe he sat out his last season at LSU, getting ready for the draft. Him and Justin Jefferson, it's hard to imagine that him, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and it was one more wide receiver. Randy Moss's son was the tight end. Like, they had a very stacked team at LSU that season, bro. But yeah, Jaguars, man, like I said, 9-8 on the season. Last season they were 3-14, so they won 6 more games than they did last season. The season before that, before they drafted Trevor Lawrence, they were 1-15, I believe. Last season was the first season of the 17-game schedule, so they went 3-14 last season. Very abysmal, like I said, more interceptions than touchdowns. The game was a lot faster for Trevor Lawrence. Now the game is slowed down for him. He's able to, pick apart, make the right reads. He's also doing a little more with his legs and things of that nature. Because we know he may not be the fastest quarterback, but he's definitely, he could definitely make some shape. We're just going to say something like that. We're going to just say make some shape. But Tennessee, man, they're going to have to really look for a receiver. Either they're going to have to draft one or they're going to have to try in free agency. Tannehill, he's probably going to be a starting quarterback next season, given the fact that Malik Willis does not look like he may be ready to start yet in the NFL. He may need another season under his belt. Wasn't making the right reads, pulling out and running maybe a little bit too much when he had some open reads. Couple passes he could have made, but ultimately, Joshua Dobbs out of Tennessee, they're definitely going to keep him on the roster, or he's going to be a backup for somebody, because he came in and, he did his thing. Given, he wasn't with the team all season, but it's the NFL, man. It's the NFL. But, so now, I want to talk about my Bills, man. I know this is a little biased for the video, but I just, given the fact of what transpired Monday night, I just want to talk about them and the type of game that we had. Nyheim Hines taking in the open kickoff, 96 yards for a touchdown to start the game off, And it's just from the beginning, man. At the beginning, like the first half, it was a slugfest. Given the fact that we did take the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, but New England marched right back down the field and scored a touchdown. Josh Allen did have the early interception. And, Mac Jones capitalized on it. And it was tied at halftime. And then Nyheim Hines took another kickoff back. And I was like, all right, we really might win this game. And the second one was 101 yards. It was a point in time, basically, where I believe he had more returning yards than the Bills had total offense. But luckily, Josh Allen only threw one interception on the day. He had two nice bombs. One to John Brown. I didn't even know John Brown was back on the team, elevated from the practice squad, but Cole Beasley was inactive. But on the game, Josh Allen was 19 of 31 for 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Also had 9 carries for 16 yards. James Cook, the rookie out of Georgia, 9 carries for 45 yards, 2 receptions for 6 yards. Diggs had him a heck of a game. He caught a nice little bomb pass. 7 receptions for 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Like I said, John Brown coming back. 1 reception for 42 yards and 1 touchdown. Mac Jones, just too many giveaways, man. Too many giveaways. 3 interceptions on the game. He also had 3 touchdowns. 243, 26 of 40. 4 carries, 5 yards. And Stevenson, 6 carries for 54 yards, 5 receptions for 28 yards. Devontae Parker had him a heck of a game. 6 receptions for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, it was extremely difficult. Extremely difficult to cover Devontae Parker, bro. Like, they got something with him. I'm glad to see, he's still doing his thing, given the fact that he was a number 1 wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. He's getting his shine back in New England. Him and Mac Jones are on a very good wavelength. Also, him and Zappy, the backup quarterback, was on an extremely good wavelength as well. So, ultimately, with the Patriots losing this game and, Miami winning their game against the Jets, that was a very lackluster game. With this loss, Buffalo won 35-23, if I did not say that already. But New England being knocked out of ultimately making the playoffs. They still had a chance, even though they were 7-9. But Buffalo, you just knew. I didn't really know if they were going to win this game, but I knew they were going to come out and play inspired, given the fact of, like I said, everybody knows the Damar Hamlin situation, injury that transpired on Monday night. Like I said in the previous episode 19, Kansas City now has the number 1 seed, and now the AFC goes as this: Kansas City gets the bye, Buffalo plays Miami, Cincinnati plays Baltimore again, of a rematch of a game that happened today, and Jacksonville and the Chargers. So Tua is still in concussion protocol, so it's going to be real hard for Miami to, given the fact that, like I said, the Bills are going to be playing inspired. They had a chance to have the number 1 seed. The game ended up being canceled. Them in Cincinnati, I really feel like we're going to come out and have something to prove. Cincinnati ended up beating the Ravens 27-16. Really, it was just an onslaught at the beginning. And, the Ravens put up points towards the end, but ultimately, given the fact that Lamar Jackson was not playing, they did not pull out the victory. Now there is a chance for Lamar Jackson to come back during the playoffs. I know, still contract talks and things of that nature, but I think he still wants to have a chance to, it's an outside chance that they may make the Super Bowl. Who knows? It's the playoffs. All you have to do is win 1 game in the NFL. So I wouldn't really count pretty much any team out. Miami probably has the least likely chance of winning their game out of all the teams that's matched up for the wild card weekend in the AFC. But like I said, any given Sunday, but for sure, it's going to be a real test. Joe Burrow and them boys are really upset. So, yeah. Like I said, and Jacksonville, they're playing inspired. They got a home game. Los Angeles, the Chargers have to come all the way across the country to Jacksonville. That's a different time zone, so it's going to be real hard for them boys to adjust. And then they have to play in Duval. Will they win? Will they win or will they lose? They have to play in Duval. One more time, Duval. That's where they have to play at. So the boys might lose, bro. I don't know. Justin Herbert and the boys, Keenan Allen and I like James Palmer, the tight end, bro. I really like the tight end. Tight end, he's pretty decent. And also Mike Williams, Austin Eckler. So, them boys are no slouch, man. Them boys are no slouch. So, we're going to get into the NFC side of things. The NFC game that I wanted to talk about today was the Philadelphia Eagles securing the number 1 seed, winning 22-16 versus the New York Giants. The Giants, Brian Daboll decided to rest his starters and, just let the boys get ready for next week. The game score was close, but to the best of my knowledge, I watched most of the game. I didn't watch all of it. I think I probably turned from it when it was like 22 to maybe 9 or something like that. Philly was just, moving down the field, scoring. They weren't scoring at will, but they were scoring. And, the Jets, they were moving the ball, but, they were punting a lot. And Webb, he did his best, but, you're going up against the starters. You're going against some starters, bro. So, Giants, they still, they pretty much had their season locked in. They're going to play the Vikings. So, the seeding goes as this. NFC, the team that gets the bye is the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Jalen Hurts, he went 20 of 35, for 229 and 1 interception. Scott had 9 carries for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown had 4 receptions for 95 yards. Webb, he went 23 of 40 for 168, 1 touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown as well, 14 yards. Brightwell had 11 carries for 60 yards, and Cager had 8 receptions for 69 yards. Like I said, basically it was just the backups. Not really familiar with any of the, top performers for the Giants. But like I said, the seeding in the NFC goes as followed. 1, Philadelphia. 2, San Francisco. 3, Minnesota. 4, Tampa Bay. 5, Dallas. 6, New York Giants. And 7, given the fact that the Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers, the Seattle Seahawks are in the playoffs. So Seattle's going to play San Fran, Minnesota's going to play New York, the Giants, and Tampa Bay and Dallas are going to have a rematch of week 1 of this season. So, yeah, it's going to be real interesting. And I believe maybe the NFC games might be a little bit more competitive than the AFC games. I really only expect, really just like I said, the Jacksonville. Now, if Lamar plays in the Cincinnati game, then I say it'd probably be 2 good competitive games in the AFC side. But NFC, every single game has a chance to be competitive, in my opinion. You have a division rivalry at 2 and number 7. Given the fact that San Fran, yeah, they're the number 2 seed, but they are going against Seattle, who has Geno Smith at the helm, and he's really been wheeling and dealing and doing his thing this season. I don't think we expected Seattle to have the type of season that they have, given the fact that, yes, they're not like a 10-win team or anything like that, but they still made the playoffs. So, San Francisco is going to be a tough game. Brock Purdy, is he going to be looking real Purdy in the playoffs? That's my thing. He hasn't really been in the playoff atmosphere yet. I know you would rather have Jimmy G in the helm right now, but Brock Purdy's been doing this thing. I don't think he's had any turnovers in his starts this season, to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, man, it's going to be a real interesting game. Minnesota versus the Giants. Now, what version of Kirk Cousins are we going to see? Are we going to see the guy that gets sacked 7 times, or are we going to see the guy, that throws for 4 touchdowns? That's going to be real prevalent and really what we're going to want to see. Is Justin Jefferson going to have a big game, or can the New York Giants, can Brian Daboll and them put together a game plan to, do something similar or take something out of the Packers playbook and try and hold Justin Jefferson to only 1 reception? Well, a lot of that everybody knows, like I've said previously. If you get to Kirk Cousins and you rattle Kirk Cousins, it's going to be hard for him to get the ball out and make completions. He's not one of those guys who's going to make a throw getting hit. There are a lot of guys like Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, even Josh Allen in a certain stick that they know, even Aaron Rodgers, that they're going to take a lick, but they're still going to put the ball in position for their wide receiver to ultimately have a chance of getting the ball. Kirk Cousins is not one of those quarterbacks. When you hit Kirk Cousins, the ball flutters. It might be popped up into the air, and it's a chance for you to get a couple of takeaways and ultimately set up your offense in a better position to score. Also winning the time of possession battle and keeping them off the field and making sure that their defense has to play a lot more snaps than their offense, man. So, yeah. And then we have Tampa Bay and Dallas. Dallas ultimately they end up losing to Washington today. Had an outside chance of getting the number 1 seed, but it was a divisional game. So, and Washington was the first team to beat Philadelphia. So I'm not gonna say that they're a slouch. Any team could beat any team on any given Sunday. That's why when the playoffs are in, all you have to do is just make the playoffs, and you can go on a spectacular run. They say. As long as you're streaking and you're playing the right football, also matchups, who's injured, who's playing, things of that nature. But yeah, Dallas had an outside chance of at least even winning the division, but ended up losing 6-26 to the Washington Commanders. Tampa Bay also lost today as well. They lost 30-17 to Atlanta. So these two teams coming off of losses are going to try and wipe the sour taste out of their mouth. I might still have Dallas winning this game, but at the same time, it's going to be hard to go against Tom Brady, bro. It's kind of hard. Does he have the type of weapons that he usually have? No. Usually he does do more with less, but he has less than less. So what is less than less? I don't know what less than less is, but that's what I'm going to go with. He has less than less. Now, he does have Godwin and Evans, so he does have an outside shot, but they have no running game. No, zero. Like, the running game is non-existent. Like, it's just like they just, like... It's like they're suiting somebody up at running back, but they're not utilizing them. So I don't know if that's an offensive line thing, scheme thing. Because, the deep shots to Mike Evans, it really depends on the play action. Fournette, leading and them other guys, White, and I'm drawing a blank right now, excuse me, but the running backs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, bro, they really need to be utilized, and they need a running game, or else the folks will be going home. Packing it up. Okay. Run the ball. Run the ball. So you can help Tom Brady out. I'm not rooting for anybody, but I'm gonna need y'all to run the ball. But this has been your boy Dolo J. This has been episode 20 of the Kicking It Dolo podcast. Last 2 podcasts, I've been finding myself grabbing the microphone and holding it extremely close. I don't know why. I know this is probably going to sound extremely loud, but yeah. This has been your boy Dolo J, Kicking the Dolo podcast. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do a predictions before Wild Card Weekend, or am I just going to do a recap of Wild Card Weekend, because we got games on 3 days. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'm also going to be dabbing back into the NBA, but I just wanted to make sure that we concluded the ending of the NFL season. So until next time, you guys. Peace.